Picture this. You're sitting at your desk, right? And you've just pulled off what feels like a minor miracle.
Oh, I know this feel.
Yeah, you spent the last 20 minutes collaborating with Claude. You prompted it, you tweaked the layout, you argued with it a little bit.
As you do.
Right, and you finally arrived at this dashboard visual that every single stakeholder actually agrees on.
The Holy Grail.
Exactly. The KPI cards are perfectly aligned across the top. That incredibly complex sales trend chart is sitting right there in the middle, looking, super insightful.
Yeah, the filters are exactly where your sales director wanted them.
Yes. You're looking at this prototype on your screen and thinking, I am a genius. The hard part is finally over.
Right. Only to realize the hard part hasn't even begun.
Right.
You open up a blank canvas in, like, Power BI or Tableau, and the illusion just shatters because you realize you don't actually have a dashboard.
No, you have a picture of a dashboard.
Exactly.
Well, welcome to Data Design with Mockup, episode 31. Today, we are doing a deep dive into one of the most specific yet universally felt frustrations in modern data work.
It is so incredibly frustrating.
It really is. We're talking about that massive chasm between AI-generated design and actual, business intelligence execution.
Yeah.
We're going to unpack how to bridge that gap, moving from a static Claude wireframe to a fully functional, mathematically sound PBIX or TWBX file.
And we're primarily looking at how dashboard wireframing through Mockup AI is completely changing the timeline on these projects.
Because we are living right in the middle of this AI adoption paradox right now.
Oh, 100%. The capability to generate ideas is moving at like light speed, but the capability to deploy those ideas,
it's hitting a wall.
a massive technical wall. Just looking at the landscape. From Microsoft and LinkedIn's 2024 data, 75% of global knowledge workers are actively using AI at work.
75%, that's huge.
Yeah, and McKinsey noted that 65% of organizations are regularly using generative AI in at least one business function. So we have the appetite.
Right.
And we certainly have the output.
Okay, let's unpack this, because understanding why that technical wall exists is so crucial. Right now, in the context of data design, Claude is a phenomenal tool.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, if you are using Claude Design, which runs on Claude Opus 5 and Fable 5, you have incredible flexibility.
Yeah, you can export those visual designs to PDF, to PowerPoint, Canva.
And HTML, yeah?
You can even bundle it up for Claude Code.
Right. But there is a hard, definitive stop. It absolutely cannot hand you a functional Power BI file or a Tableau workbook.
And that limitation is, well, it's a scope boundary
Right.
rather than a flaw in the system.
Right, it's not a bug.
Exactly. Claude is built as a generalized reasoning and generation engine. Its primary function here is to help you arrive at a visual direction rapidly.
But a visual direction is ultimately just pixels rendered on a screen,
Yeah. It isn't a dedicated semantic layer for business intelligence.
So using Claude to design a dashboard is essentially like hiring a world-class artist to paint a beautiful watercolor of a house.
Oh, that's a good analogy.
Right. The painting is gorgeous. You can clearly see where the windows are placed. You know the color of the front door. You can see the slope of the roof.
Yeah.
But if you take that watercolor and hand it to a construction crew, they are going to look at you like you've completely lost your mind.
Yeah, they can't build a house from a painting.
Exactly. They need an architectural blueprint. They need to know the load-bearing requirements, the electrical voltage, the plumbing routing. The watercolor gives them zero structural reality.
What's fascinating here is how often we confuse the visual representation of data with the actual mechanics of data.
Yes.
Like, let's look at a seemingly simple component, a KPI tile.
Okay, sure.
In a Claude visual prototype, a KPI tile is just a neatly drawn box. It has a large number in it, maybe a small green arrow pointing upward to show growth.
Right. It's essentially just a text box.
Exactly. But in the reality of a tool like Power BI, a KPI visual has incredibly rigid, specific mathematical requirements just to function.
It's not just text.
No, it requires a base measure,
Right.
which is the actual dynamic number it's tracking. It needs a target measure to serve as a baseline for comparison.
Right.
And it usually requires a trend axis, like a time series, to evaluate the trajectory of that number over time.
And Claude's picture doesn't contain a single piece of that underlying logic.
Not a single piece. It just knows it should be a box that says, revenue up 10%.
Right. It has absolutely no concept of how to query the database to actually calculate that revenue.
And the complexity compounds exponentially when you move from simple tiles to dense data structures.
Like tables.
Like tables, yeah. A generic HTML table generated in a Claude prototype is quite literally just rows and columns of static text.
Right.
But a BI developer doesn't usually build static tables, they build matrix visuals.
Oh, yeah. Matrices are a whole different beast.
Exactly. A Power BI matrix requires defined interactive hierarchies. It requires custom logic for totals and subtotals.
Yeah.
It has explicit expand and collapse behaviors that actually need to be programmed in.
Right. It's an interactive, cross-filtering engine explicitly designed to organize data dynamically.
Yeah, across rows, columns, and values. A picture of a table gives you none of that engine.
Okay. I am going to push back a little bit here, though.
Okay, go for it.
I mean, I understand the immense gap in complexity. But if I am handing this beautiful Claude watercolor over to a highly skilled BI developer,
Yeah.
isn't it their literal job to figure out those missing structural pieces and build the house? Why can't they just look at the visual intent and execute it?
Well, that brings us to the hidden cost of guesswork.
Guesswork, okay.
Yeah, when you hand a developer a purely visual wireframe, you are forcing them to make dozens, sometimes hundreds of micro decisions on the fly.
Ah, I see what you mean.
They have to guess which specific BI component best approximates the visual element you drew. They have to guess which fields from the database actually belong on the X and Y axis.
Right, just to make a chart function the way the picture implies.
Exactly.
Mhm.
They have to determine if a certain filter should act as a standard slicer or some complex cross-filter. They have to write custom DAX calculations based on what they assume the stakeholder wants.
So they are essentially reverse engineering business requirements from a painting.
Yes. And because they're guessing, they frequently guess wrong.
And naturally.
Or, more accurately, they make a logical technical decision that happens to conflict with the unspoken assumption the stakeholder had in their head.
Right, the assumption they had when they approved the visual.
Exactly. And this is the genesis of those endless, agonizing review loops.
Oh, we all know those loops.
The stakeholder looks at the first build and says, wait, why does this entire dashboard completely change when I click on the European region? It didn't do that in the mockup.
And then the developer has to go back, tear open the data model, and rewrite the relationship logic.
Exactly. And if you are reworking fundamental data logic at the build stage, you are burning days of expensive development time.
Yeah.
If you resolve those logical questions at the wireframe stage, it takes minutes.
That makes total sense. You are paying an incredible premium for visual miscommunication.
100%.
So the goal is to find a bridge. We need a mechanism that translates the watercolor into a structural blueprint without losing that design consensus that everyone already fought for.
Exactly. And this is where mockup AI enters the workflow as that dedicated translation layer.
Right, so we're looking at a three-stage workflow here, moving from Claude for the unstructured ideation, through mockup to generate the BI native wireframe, and finally into Power BI or Tableau for the deployment.
Yeah, let's look at the first approach to this, which revolves around what we call pixel preservation.
Pixel preservation. Okay, what does that look like?
So this approach is highly effective when your session with Claude produced a layout that the stakeholders absolutely love.
Like the visual design is locked in.
Right. You just need to convert it into a functional format. This relies on feeding the visual output into mockup's conversational AI,
Okay.
allowing the model to analyze the layout and literally reconstruct it using native BI components.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting, but we have to mention the mechanism behind this requires understanding some strict constraints.
Yeah, you can't just throw any image at it.
Right. It's about how computer vision models interpret these images. So if you're in Claude Design, you can export your canvas and take a screenshot of the rendered page.
Or if you were using an artifact, you screenshot the preview.
Exactly. But the critical rule here for you guys listening is that it must be a single, uncropped, unscrolled screenshot.
Yes. The AI needs to see the entire dashboard ecosystem in a single frame.
Why is that so important?
Because it isn't just looking at individual charts, right? It is mapping the spatial relationships between the elements.
Oh, I see.
It needs to understand that the global filters on the left are dictating the behavior of the matrix on the right. If you crop the image, you destroy that contextual mapping.
That makes a ton of sense. And there is a massive pro tip here regarding file density.
Oh, yes. The 4K monitor issue.
Yes, we all love our beautiful, massive 4K monitors. But if you take a native full-screen screenshot on a 4K display, you are creating an incredibly dense image file.
Way too dense.
Right. When you feed that into the AI, and keep in mind mockup accepts JPG or PNG formats up to 2 megabytes, It often just chokes on the sheer volume of subpixel data.
It's just too much noise for the model.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you actually want to downscale that screenshot to roughly 1600 pixels wide.
Right.
You're giving the AI just enough resolution to understand the structure without overwhelming it with unnecessary graphical density.
That's a great tip. And once you have that properly scaled image, the next phase is providing the linguistic context.
Right, the prompt.
Yeah, you upload the image into the Create with AI chat panel, but you must pair it with a prompt that anchors the AI's decision tree.
You can't just leave it blank.
No, you need to explicitly state the target tool, the intended audience, and the key metrics.
So, for example, you wouldn't just say, build this.
No.
You would say, like, rebuild this layout as a Power BI dashboard tailored for a regional sales manager. Keep the 4 KPI tiles across the top.
Right.
The primary metrics we are tracking are revenue, pipeline value, win rate, and average deal size.
Exactly. Providing that specific context allows the AI to make autonomous, intelligent decisions about the structural logic.
Yeah.
And if you want to accelerate that process even further, you can actually lead your prompt with a persona.
Oh, like role-playing.
Yeah, by starting with, I am a head of sales, rebuild this. You immediately give the model a behavioral framework.
Oh, that's smart.
It understands the typical priorities and data relationships that a head of sales cares about, which really helps it infer the logic behind your visual layout.
That is so cool. And when you initiate the build, mockup isn't just performing an advanced copy and paste operation.
No, not at all.
It is actively translating visual language into structural language. Like, it scans the top left corner of your screenshot, identifies a colored box with the word revenue in it, and it completely discards the visual box.
Right.
Instead, it pulls a dedicated, pre-configured BI KPI component from its own architectural library and places it in that spot.
It identifies your generic HTML table and drops in a matrix component that already possesses the mathematical structure required for Power BI.
It's rebuilding the house using actual bricks instead of watercolor paint.
Exactly. And we should briefly mention the economics of this workflow because it's super accessible.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Because usually a major barrier to adopting these new middleware tools is procurement.
And cost.
Yeah, fighting for budget.
But this specific workflow is highly democratized. Mockup's free tier gives you a project space, 3 screens, and 25 AI coins.
Okay.
And generating a screen from your screenshot only costs 2 coins.
Wow.
Yeah, so you can comfortably execute this entire translation process, run multiple iterations, and export the results without ever touching a corporate credit card.
That is amazing. But, having a canvas full of structural components is really only half the battle.
Oh, for sure.
Because a blueprint is completely useless if it calls for heavy steel I-beams and your local supplier only sells cheap wood.
Right.
Your wireframe has to speak the exact language of your actual database. Which brings us to a critical junction here, attaching the data schema to the wireframe.
Yes. Within that same chat interface, you have the ability to upload a CSV file up to 30 megabytes, or an Excel file up to 5 megabytes.
Okay.
And this file represents your data structure. But, and I know you're thinking this immediately triggers the loudest alarm bell in any enterprise environment.
Data security.
Data security.
Oh, without question. The moment you suggest uploading proprietary raw sales data to an AI tool, IT and security teams are going to immediately shut the conversation down. It's a non-starter.
Completely.
Yeah.
But the mechanism here is designed specifically to bypass that risk.
Okay. How?
Mockup does not read, it does not open, and it does not store the actual rows of your data.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it is only scanning the metadata. It reads the column headers and the data types. It just wants to know, is this column a date? Is this a currency? Is this a text string?
Got it. So it is mapping the architecture of your data, completely ignoring the sensitive contents within that architecture.
Exactly.
So it's exactly like handing a security guard the guest list for a highly exclusive event.
Right.
But keeping everyone's social security numbers, home addresses, and background checks locked safely in a vault.
Perfect analogy.
The guard only needs to know who is supposed to be there and what tier of access they have. They don't need the deep, sensitive background data to do their job of organizing the room.
Yeah, you get all the benefits of structural organization without exposing the enterprise to any data compliance risks.
Right. And, you can even just use a dummy file that perfectly mimics your schema's column names rather than touching the production database at all.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And once that schema is ingested, The AI automatically maps your specific field names to the components it just generated.
So the fields sitting on your wireframe perfectly match the literal fields your BI developer will see when they connect to the real data model.
Exactly. Now, at this point, you have a highly advanced starting point, but it still requires a human touch to finalize the BI structure.
Right.
You open the generated screen in the canvas, and you refine it.
And this is the moment where you really have to suppress your inner graphic designer.
Yes.
Because Claude might have given you this gorgeous bespoke color palette,
Yeah.
or utilized some incredibly sleek web typography that looks phenomenal in a browser.
Yeah.
Do not waste a single minute in mockup trying to recreate that exact font or hex code.
No, that is entirely missing the point of the tool.
Right, the styling, the formatting, the final coat of paint, all of that is handled natively in Power BI or Tableau at the very end of the process.
Your entire focus during this wireframing stage should be relentlessly structural.
Yeah. Like, are the axes on the scatter plot mapped to the correct fields?
Exactly. Do these drop-down filters make logical sense based on how our data model is actually built?
Right. And once you verify that the structural logic is sound, you reach what might be the most valuable part of this entire workflow.
Oh, the sign-off.
Yes. Gaining stakeholder sign-off via a live link.
It is a lifesaver.
This effectively kills the dreaded Slack screenshot review cycle.
Oh, thank goodness.
Because we have all lived the nightmare of dropping a static JPEG of a dashboard into a Slack channel, right?
Yeah.
Only to watch 3 different executives reply in a chaotic thread, offering conflicting feedback about a static image they don't actually understand the mechanics of.
It's the worst.
Uh.
But replacing a...
Yeah, they can actually click around.
Right. Stakeholders can actually see the structural logic. They can leave specific, targeted comments directly on the layout elements.
Which means you have the necessary arguments, you resolve the logical disagreements, and you secure explicit, documented approval before a single DAX measure is ever written.
That is the key. Resolving a misunderstanding at this stage takes 5 minutes of dragging and dropping.
Right.
Resolving it after the data model is built takes a week of architectural teardown.
It's a no-brainer. Which sets up the grand finale of this route. With one click, Mockup Semantic Layer takes everything you have mapped out and generates a real, live PBIX or TWBX file.
And because you attach your schema, that exported file carries the full layout, the chart structure, the specific measures, and the calculated fields you defined.
Right. And crucially, if you chose not to attach a data schema at all, the tool simply injects dummy data to hold the structural integrity of the file together.
Yeah. The end result is that your BI developer opens their software, and instead of staring down a terrifying blank white canvas...
That horrible blank canvas.
Yep, they're looking at a fully structured, logically sound template.
Their job shifts from guessing at layout requirements to simply swapping the dummy data for the real production source.
Verifying the connections and publishing, it is a fundamental paradigm shift in development velocity.
It really is. Now, everything we just discussed is the pixel preservation route. But what if you don't actually care about preserving the visual output?
Like if it's just rough.
Yeah, let's say your session with Claude was just a highly chaotic brainstorming session. You were just throwing spaghetti at the wall.
Testing radical layouts.
Right, just trying to figure out what KPIs even matter for a new initiative. The final image Claude spat out might be super ugly, but the underlying business ideas you discovered during the chat are rock solid.
Well, that scenario calls for the clean slate route.
Okay, the clean slate route.
Yeah, if the visual design itself isn't precious, you should not waste your time downscaling a screenshot, worrying about image fidelity, and forcing an AI to interpret pixels.
Right, skip all that.
You simply bypass the visual interpretation layer entirely and feed the text specification directly into mockup.
So you essentially strip away the painting and just hand over the math.
Exactly.
You open the chat and write out a structured prompt. You define the audience, say regional sales managers. You state the primary goal. Monitor revenue velocity and pipeline health.
Yeah.
You list the exact KPIs, revenue growth, win rate, cycle time. You list the desired charts, a monthly trend line, and a product matrix. And you give a basic layout instruction like KPI cards at the top, matrix at the bottom.
And you take that dense block of text, paste it into the conversational AI, and let it generate the structure from scratch.
That's incredible.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this route is really a masterclass in how we communicate business requirements.
Oh, for sure.
The clean slate route is for when you want a pure BI native structure generated strictly from your business intent. You aren't forcing the AI to reverse engineer the quirky visual decisions made by another tool.
You are directly translating logic into architecture. And from a purely practical standpoint, it is incredibly fast. If all you need is the functional skeleton of a dashboard, skipping the entire image capture, downscaling, and upload dance saves you a significant chunk of time.
Oh, absolutely.
You are bypassing the translation of the watercolor and just asking the AI to draw the blueprint from your list of materials.
Yeah. You lean on the first method when the stakeholder fell in love with the specific visual direction,
Right.
and you lean on the second method when the visual was just a scratch pad for figuring out the business logic.
But the destination for both methods is identical. You are walking away with a mathematically sound, fully structured BI file that is primed and ready for immediate development.
The only difference is whether you start with a picture or a paragraph.
Wow. So what does this all mean for you listening right now? We have covered a massive amount of ground today on this deep dive.
That's good ground. Yeah.
Navigating the AI adoption paradox, the rigid requirements of BI matrices, the mechanics of semantic layers, and the nuances of data security.
It's a lot.
It is. But the core takeaway for you, the person tasked with actually delivering these dashboards to demanding stakeholders, is that the era of choosing between speed and structure is over.
Completely over.
You no longer have to sacrifice the lightning-fast, unstructured ideation speed of Claude just because you need the rigid, necessary architecture of mock-up and your BI tools.
No, they aren't competing philosophies anymore.
Right.
They are two perfectly integrated halves of a modern data design workflow.
Yeah.
They perfectly mitigate each other's weaknesses.
Yeah.
Claude handles the unstructured creative chaos, allowing you to iterate on ideas instantly. Mockup handles the structured technical translation, turning those ideas into architectural reality.
And then Power BI or Tableau handles the final enterprise delivery and data modeling.
Exactly. And the reality that this entire end-to-end translation process can be executed in about 15 minutes, entirely within a free tier. I mean, it fundamentally changes the economics of gated team operations.
It changes the math on human capital. Why would any organization pay a highly skilled developer to spend 4 hours manually dragging and dropping formatting boxes onto a blank canvas
Right.
when you can automate the translation of a verified wireframe in 15 minutes?
It makes no sense.
Yeah.
But, this raises an important question, though. A question that goes far beyond just saving a few hours of formatting time for a developer.
Oh, I like where this is going. Lay it on us.
If artificial intelligence can now instantly translate a rough conversation, or even just a screenshot of a rough prototype, into a mathematically sound, DI-ready wireframe,
Yeah.
what happens to the traditional dashboard requirements gathering phase?
Oh, wow.
Right? We all know that agonizing phase. It usually involves weeks of redundant meetings, endless email chains, and the drafting of massive text-heavy specification documents that, let's be honest, nobody actually reads.
Nobody reads the spec doc, and
Right.
everyone interprets it differently anyway.
Exactly. So if a live wireframe can now be generated instantly and inherently contains all the structural logic needed for deployment, does the wireframe itself become the new universal language of business intelligence?
Huh.
Does this automated workflow effectively kill the dreaded specification document once and for all?
Oh, that is a fantastic and provocative thought to leave on. Are we witnessing the death of the spec doc?
I think we might be.
I think every single analyst and developer listening right now is crossing their fingers and desperately hoping the answer is yes.
Absolutely.
Well, the next time you find yourself staring at that beautiful Claude watercolor and dreading the reality of that blank BI canvas, give this bridge a try. See if you can turn your painting into a blueprint without losing your mind in the process. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive, and we will catch you on the next one.